which is like, hey God, what can I give you? Hey God, what can I do for you? Hey God, what do you want me to do? And the minute you can shift into that perspective of every hour and every minute of every day is just living with an understanding of asking, what does God want you to do? We work with a lot of young people, and I'm sure you can ask anybody that's young in this community, like, what do you want to do with your life? It is the most paralyzing question to ask any young person, is what do they want to do with their life? They don't want to tell you. They can't tell you. Unfortunately, and young people, I feel for you because you have like options like nobody's business. Your parents, when they had options, it was a teacher, an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor, or a homeless person. Like we've got, young people have like, they can do 1,000 different things. So it's an overwhelming question. But asking that question fills people with dread. There's an uncertainty, there's an unknown there, there's just too much opportunity. But the minute we start to rephrase that question and say, what does God want you to do with your life? It starts to simplify it a little bit. It starts to take the thought process of trying to make a decision for myself to a thought process of trying to understand what it is God's created me to do. And I've been listening this morning a little bit and kind of looking around, and I hear like the world's a difficult place at the moment, and we've had COVID, and the petrol prices are through the roof. They're bad, astronomically through the roof. Right? Petrol prices are killing, and economy's down, and we've got no jobs, and we've got no this, and we've got no that, and the world's so bad. And I look at that and I'm like, that is super cool. Like, how much more possibility is there for my life to operate in God's purpose in a world that's falling apart? So the more the world crumbles around us, the more life gets tricky, the more opportunity there actually is for us to do God's work. And I don't think many of us calculate that cost. I don't know, I had some reminiscing this morning watching my dad and Gail sing, and I mean, I've been brought up in the church. The church is a big part of my life, and if I think of childhood, I think of church and all the people associated to the church, which I'm very grateful for. It's quite something. But one's got to ask yourself, where are all the people? Where are all the people? Dad talked about a mega church, and there are mega churches all over the place. Are the mega churches doing what they need to do? But you look at all the churches all over the place, and they seem to be getting less. The people seem to be getting less, and there's a place in Matthew 6 it says, in Luke 10 it sent the disciples out, and he said, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. And I experienced this in my ministry, like, to find workers is very, very difficult. People don't really want to do God's work. We want to do work that gives us status, and we want to do work that puts money in our bank accounts. And that's where we go. That's how we make our decisions in life. What job can I do? What's going to earn me the most amount of money with the least amount of effort? And that's not a strong character thing. And we experience it often. I mean, we carry the load a lot. But the workers are few, and the harvest is great. And so if you're looking for opportunities in South Africa today with the unemployment rate and all the nonsense that everybody's worried about, I live in Compass West, so I'm lucky there. You don't watch news or worry about those things. God's got plenty. There's vacancies all over the place in the work that God wants us to fulfill. So I'm going to read from Romans 8. It says, so you have not received a spirit that makes you fearful slaves, or a slave to fear. And I don't want to be so like in your face, but I do believe most people are living in fear. I do believe that most of our prayers come from a place of fear. We don't live from a place of power. We don't live from a place of faith. We don't live from a place of expectation. I wrote there, my greatest pain, my greatest loss in addiction and even in recovery brought the greatest amount of growth. And there was a stage not so long ago where I feared God taking me back into a period of loss and pain. And I thought to myself, why am I fearful of that loss and pain? Because God will bring me through the loss and pain into something much bigger, much better. And so we've got to stop living in a place of fear. We waste so many prayers to God, praying to God about the things we're fearful for. Because God's saying, like, stop fearing. I didn't give you a spirit of fear. I didn't tell you to worry about everything. I didn't tell you to beg me to take care of the future, beg me to give you all the things you're fearful you're never going to get. God gave us a spirit of power and sound mind, and He said, let's go. And yeah, there's a big shift in that. We move on a little bit. It says we've actually become God's children. We are His heirs. In fact, together with Christ, we are the heirs of God's glory. And then it's got that but thing. And churches never teach the but. Yeah, they never do. I don't know if you've read the Matthew 5, the Beatitudes. I mean, they're very confusing. But the final Beatitude is blessed on those that are persecuted. And I've never heard a pastor telling me, like, come to church because the future is persecution. Like, they never sell that. And like, it's not something you hear. Or, hey, they should. It says, but if we are to share in God's glory, we also have to share in His suffering. And it's that acceptance of suffering that makes life okay, rather than the fear of it. If we go on further, and this is where my point is, we know that God causes everything, even the bad stuff, to work together for the good of those who love God, and more importantly, are called according to His purpose for them. It brings that thing, it says, for God knew His people in advance and He chose them. And it goes on to say something so cool. Having chosen them, He called them to come to Him, and having called them, He gave them right standing with Him, and having given them right standing, He gave them His glory. And I want to break that down, because those that are called according to His purpose, all things will work for the greater good. There's not anything in this world that can stop God's purpose. So your greatest secret, your greatest drive, the thing that you need to know most in your life is, what is God's purpose for me? Because, and this is important, well, yeah, He chose you. My question is, to do what? He called you for what? Those are questions we can really wrestle with in our quiet time.